Good afternoon and welcome. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I am broadcasting from Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. And I'm so glad that you are taking your Sunday afternoon, a little bit of your time to join us today. So, if this is your first time joining us, I want to tell you a little bit about who we are. Here at the Center for Spiritual Living, we teach a philosophy called the science of mind that is rooted in ancient wisdom and psychology and philosophy and what we call new thought. And what we do is we look for the universal principles that are beneath all of those, beneath the world's great religions, as well as philosophy, science, etc. So you can learn a lot about an organization by what they value. And so this is what is important to us at the Center for Spiritual Living in Ocala. Our values are spiritual growth and practice. It's at the top of our list. It is why we come together, is to grow spiritually and to learn from one another and to learn practices, tools and principles that help us live our best lives. We value love. We value appreciation and community. We have a wonderful location in Ocala where we meet when we're not socially distancing and soon to be coming back in person. We value freedom, creativity, health and wholeness, generosity, and financial well-being. Our mission is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. And that's some of what we will be talking about today. Our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence. And our vision is a world that works for everyone. And this mission, purpose, and vision is the same as the mission, purpose, and vision of the larger organization of Centers for Spiritual Living. We are just one of many of over 400 that are located throughout the United States and the rest of the world. So I like to think of myself as an ambassador for all of us. If you're watching from some place where you can't be with us, that maybe there is a Center for Spiritual Living that is close to you that you could visit and become part of that community. And so I'm going to invite our practitioners in to join me this morning. Hey, Donna.
Hi.
Good morning. Good afternoon. It's not morning, is it?
Not crazy. It feels like poof, the whole day is gone.
Yes, yes. How you doing, honey? You good?
Oh my gosh, it's been so much fun all day. I love sitting in this space of community with all of our tribe. It's just awesome. Thank you so much for technology.
Yes, and I want to commend you just on a personal note. We commemorated the life and the legacy of Madge Kerr yesterday, your mama. Made
Yeah,
her transition while you were in New York, and it was just a lovely, lovely ceremony, very fitting of her and her memory.
thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to see that happen as well, and to just honor her the way that we did, and everybody. Oh my gosh, she gave us so many wonderful stories, and it was just so nice to the gift that was for me. It was just wonderful.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So I thank you. So I'm going to let you take it away and do an invocation for our afternoon together, and go for it, Donna.
Ah, yes. Hey, you guys, what's going on in your world today? I'm just so excited to be here with you and to have the opportunity to do this invocation with us to just get us into that space of oneness as we open up our mind and our hearts to hear today's message. So it is with a deep breath that I center down into my couch, this little red couch that I love so much. And I open my heart and my mind, and I recognize the allness of the one. This one permeates all beings, past, present, future. All of it is a part of the oneness. I believe that God is everywhere. And if that is true, then that means that God is in this very spot that I sit in, on my little red couch, in my Reiki room, in the town of Ocala, Florida, United States, on planet Earth, in this galaxy atmosphere. God is showing up in my spot. And I know that I am connected to the allness in this way. And I know the same is true for every single person that exists right now. We're all connected in our little spot that we sit in to the oneness. And we know that the oneness is speaking through each and every one of us as we open our hearts and our minds to that desire that is saying, what is mine to do in the world? How do I show up in the world? How do I put pen to paper or song to musical instrument? How do I smile at people as I go by? What is mine to do to affect change and ideas and growth within humanity and within the world? And I know that that oneness that is me, sending little messages to me, to give me that little zing that says, this is mine to do. And so today, what is mine to do is to open my heart and to listen as the message comes to us, through the vessel that it comes to us, through this vehicle that is the internet. We're connecting. We're connecting with each other. We're connecting to humanity. We're connecting to the planet. We're connecting to the one. And we're opening up our hearts and our minds to it all. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm grateful for the way it shows up for me today. I am grateful for every wonderful thing that is in my life. I'm grateful for each and every person who lends to that story that is me and allowing me to open my mind up to what is mine to do. It's with joy and gratitude that I welcome all of these thoughts into my heart, into my mind, and I push it back out into the law, knowing that it's already done and working for the highest and best of each person. And so it is. And we let it be. Amen.
And so it is. Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful treatment, that beautiful opening. And I just know that we're going to have a wonderful conversation this afternoon.
I'm very excited.
Me too. Thank you so much, Donna, and we will see you later.
All right.
All right. All right, so I'm going to take a moment now to tell you a little bit about the guest that is joining us this afternoon. Let's see. Since 1986, Tracy Brown has used universal spiritual principles to infuse her life with peace and joy. Her personal motto is, you always have a choice. She is the author of several books. I'm told 12 books. That's more than several. And her latest book is Stained Glass Spirit, Becoming a Spiritual Community Where Oneness Does Not Require Sameness. And her book, I Turn to Prayer, is a collection of prayers written in a variety of formats. Tracy is a licensed practitioner with Centers for Spiritual Living. She is a recipient of the Ernest Holmes Award and recently ended 3 years as the chair for the CSL International Board of Directors. She's also the moderator for a public Facebook group where more than 7,000 people ask themselves, what is mine to do to interrupt or end race-based hatred and violence? Indeed, that's a question for all of us. What is mine to do in this time of divisiveness and division as I've never seen in my lifetime? I don't know about the rest of you, but certainly it is time for people of faith. It is time for people who believe in this principle, this idea of oneness, to step forward and to do what is theirs to do. And so I invite Tracy to join us. Hello, Tracy.
I am so glad to be hanging out with you this afternoon talking about this topic.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you so much for saying yes. I want to start with, just in introducing you. I mean, we know like the formalities of it, right? But how did you come into this teaching of the science of mind, and what has it meant for you in your life?
I always liked using that 1986 date when I began thinking about the connection of then to now. So I had been visiting a Unity, Deepak Chopra, and Wayne Dyer and, people who are on the speaking circuit. And I had gone, and one day I asked, what kind of church is this that is hosting these kinds? And shortly after that, I began to really understand New Thought and began to study it, and began to attend that church. And now, all of these decades later, that was my entry into the fact that a lot of what I studied and a lot of what there really was a theology and a philosophy and a structure that already existed. So, and then learning about New Thought and Science of Mind and unity principles and all of that path. I've always had a path of service, and I've always had a path of leadership. So all of those things have come the way that I show up now as, a volunteer leader, as someone who is teaching others, always from a place of spiritual grounding.
Yeah. So what's your profession? What is it that you did or do for a living?
My primary business is, I work with leaders and associations all over the United States on diversity strategy, diversity and inclusion strategy, and the skills that you need to be able to implement that strategy. And so that's my primary business. And then I also do work with spiritual communities, and that is under the Stained Glass Spirit brand. And that is why the most recent book, The Glass Spirit. And then, diversity and inclusion includes all the ways we are different from one another and genetically. But in the context of racism specifically, then that is where the What Is My book and TED Talk all come together, because that work is about interrupting or ending race-based violence.
Yeah. And it's just it's time, right? It's time for this work to be happening, for there to be more awareness, and for people to become more skilled in having the conversations.
It has been centuries, and it looks like finally our consciousness has brought it to today, that y'all been talking about you want harmony and unity. Y'all have been talking about we love everybody. Well, you all have been talking about a world that works for everyone. Y'all been doing that a long time. Let's see if we can help you out in circumstances that allow you to walk your talk.
Yes. Yes, Tracy. And that's why we're talking today. Because the work that we are doing is just is dovetailing. I just feel so much that that I was born for this time. I didn't know it, but I was born for this, with the skills and the talents and the life circumstance and experiences that I've had that equip me to be at this moment at this time, right? To be a bridge builder and to be someone who lives what we teach, what we preach about. Right? It's beautiful to say we're all one, isn't it? And we say that, and we've been saying that, and we talk about a world that works for everybody. Now let's show it. How do we show it? This is where the rubber meets the road. Right?
So
we can't
what
just
do you do?
What am I doing?
What do you do when people? No. So what do you do when people say, "Heard about restorative justice, but what's that got to do with spirituality?" Like, you're a minister. What are you doing talking about justice at that?
Right. Yeah, there are people who say that I don't live in conditions. You know, that I focus my energy and my time, and this is part of our teaching, right, on what works, because we want to go in the direction of good, and we want to manifest, you know, we want to focus on the thing that we want to manifest. So there are a lot of people who say, well, I'm just going to focus on the good, because if I look at these things that are not good, that are not working, then I perpetuate it. To which I believe we're very, very mistaken, very mistaken. And the analogy that I think about is the analogy of a fire alarm, right? The fire alarm goes off to tell you that there is something happening, there is danger. And for people who think, well, I don't live in circumstance, it's kind of like hearing the fire alarm and saying, wow, I don't like that noise, I'm going to take out the batteries and go back to sleep. You know, instead of realizing there is danger here, I need to get into action. It's not enough to pray, it's not enough to vision. We are now have been given the tools and ability to actually do something that is
Yeah,
that
there are
piece.
two pieces to that. One, I love that example. If fire alarm goes off, you don't take the batteries out, as you said. What you do is you go through a list of actions to take in the physical form that respond to the warning. And that's not wrong, because we're in our physical bodies and change happens, correction happens, solution is delivered through the human actions, the humanity. So I love that example. And our teaching is very clear. We look at what we want, not what we don't want. So if I want a world where people are treated fairly, or a world that works for everyone, then what actions am I taking to replace condition with the vision? So there is nothing in our teaching that tells us to ignore condition. That it's not the same thing. Looking toward what I want and not continually staring and being engaged in what I don't want is not the same as saying, ignore what you don't want.
Right.
And just pretend it's not there. It says, we teach, do not let that consume you, and choose what you will do to move from that condition to what your vision is.
Right. We don't deny the condition. We may deny its power over us, but we don't deny
Yes.
the existence of the condition. And that's the piece, the restorative justice, and bringing people together in circle, which is so much of the work that I do, restorative practices, restorative justice. You bring people together, the person who has been harmed, the person who did the harm. We bring their support, and everyone sits in circle. And we talk about the four things. Number one, what happened? From the different perspectives, not just from one, but from everybody's perspective. So we all get a bigger picture of what happened. And the next question is the impact, and everyone speaks to that. The next question is, what do we do to make it right? And that requires accountability. It requires accountability. It requires courage. These conversations, that's what makes these conversations so difficult, is that they take courage. They're messy. It means that we have to have the willingness to be accountable, which is owning our own stuff. Which means you got to look at it, you have to own it, and you have to be willing to do something to change it, like action. Right? Faith without works is dead.
Right. And all of the spiritual traditions have a guide is similar to that. even Ernest Holmes in Science of Mind, I think it's in fact, is in the glossary, the definition of faith, and it starts out that faith is attitude or a mental construct, and we could stop if we stopped reading there. We would think, oh, it's just about, or we just mentally in prayer plant a seed. But if we read further, he says that that mental attitude, quote, is so inwardly embodied that the mind can no longer deny it. And what we know about embodied is that, right, I believe then it is driving my behaviors, and I am the physical presence of that quality or principle. I cannot be the physical example of that principle if all I'm doing is sit meditation cushion or going into my proverbial prayer closet and just doing. Do not misunderstand me. The mental work is the foundation for everything we do. We are the science of, but we are centers for spiritual living. And so our job is to integrate with the mystery or the principle in order to deliver the physical change. How, if you look at the teaching symbol that we use and the metaphor of seed, soil, and plant, we have the opportunity to contribute to what is being co-created. So when no, it's just all mental work. The foundation is mental work. But if you're doing your mental work, think of any other major change you've had in your personal life, and we know that the principles then apply to the. Once I got clear and I did my prayer work and I'm doing my affirmations, I'm doing all the spiritual work, because I'm transformed from the inside out. I can no longer behave the way I used to.
Right.
And my begin to reflect what is mine to do to help move toward the goal. Works on the individual. That's how it works in the collective, because all of our individual contributions are building the collective.
Right. So it all starts, at the center here, and it creates that ripple effect. I was speaking with someone about restorative practices and how my approach to it and starting from within and that change. And she says, I'll just say how she said it. I don't want to hear that bullshit. There's things out there that are wrong that we need to take care of. There's nothing here. I don't need to change anything. Like, I got it, and I just thought, well, we all have our opinions, and but where we come from in our teaching, that's another philosophy. But where we come from is that the change begins within. We have to be the change that we want to see in the world.
Key word, begins within. The change begins within. And the manifestation of change is physical. Now, I'm not confused. I'm not confused that we, by our physical will, make the change. I'm talking about action in alignment with what I say I want. For a job, I want to change my career path, and I simply do the work, but I never actually apply for a job anywhere. It's not totally impossible, But the likelihood that I'm going to change my job from being an accountant to a chef or to anything I might choose, if I don't take some classes or get some training, then like that's my part of doing. If I don't go meet people who are doing that new profession so I can learn from them, I'm not doing my part. If I never apply for a job in that new profession, like how is it going to be if I'm not doing what is my contribution to the process, even though I don't control every aspect of it. And so when
Right.
we talk about, what is mine to do to interrupt or end race-based hatred and violence, it's no different. It's not the politics. It's about using the spiritual principles and being in alignment with how I know change happens in order to contribute to a collective difference.
Sure. And everybody's thing that is theirs to do is different. It's all based on our gifts and our passions and our talents. But there's still something to do. There is always still the something to do. In the past 2 days, I've listened to 3 eulogies. One was for Donna's mom that I mentioned, but in preparation for our conversation, I listened to I didn't set out to do this, but I listened to the eulogy that Barack Obama delivered for the 9 people that were killed at the Emanuel AME. And I also listened to the eulogy that Cindy McCain delivered on the passing of John McCain. And I was just struck, and I felt like I guess there's something that I needed to share today was that is one commonality for all of us, is that our time here in human form is very limited. So I think we're all being called to look at what is ours to do. What are the gifts that I was given? What was the passion that's inside of me? What are my skills to share with the larger world? It's great if I can be at peace in my house and in my little sanctuary space and pray and just know that all is well in my world, right? But there is a larger world that we are all a part of.
And in my world, it's impossible to separate myself from the one. Right. So, I mean, we can go back to basic spiritual principles if we believe that there is one life, wonder, and everything has been created from that one, and the is whole only because it includes all that it has created from itself, then there really is no such thing as my life does not have any impact and is not every other life. So if I am deluded that by me going and sitting, in my meditation chair and doing my spiritual practice every morning and my spiritual mind treatments that I do every night and all the do spiritual practice throughout the day, if I fool or delude myself that is to do, and because like my life is good, my life is good. It's plenty of work, and I've got food in the refrigerator and money in the bank, and I love my car, and I have some good friends. Be concerned about anybody else. Let them do their prayer work and their spiritual practice and their life. They'll get their life together, denies the reality that the collective systems that we create socially and culturally, we are creating that. We can't put that on spirit. Those are the humanity. And so humanity has to change the systems.
Right. And, you know, by not actively taking a role, we allow the status quo to continue. By not actively, right? That's what I feel we're each being called to do. And that's what I appreciate so much of your What's Mine to Do site on Facebook, your Facebook page. I just found it myself a few months ago, and I found what was mine to do in that moment, share it with as many of my friends as possible who were interested in these conversations, in bridging the gap and healing this divide. And I learned things reading the posts and the blogs, like history that was just incredible and appalling. And I was just, as a person of color, thinking, how did I not know that? You know, and I again, accountability, like we all need to be willing to look into our own hearts and our own complicity in what has been perpetuated so that we can stop it, say enough, enough. And I think for myself, I'll share one of my, it was just so icky, ugly when I saw it for myself. I think about the offerings of Black history when I was in high school and in college, and thinking to myself, I don't need to take Black history. That's not my history. That's not about me. And so willfully not looking at that, I'm a Latina, right? But that's how I identified. But in being of Puerto Rican descent, my heredity genetically, I'm a little bit of everything. I'm a little bit of everything. It is all mine. And so when I started reading and seeing these things, I thought, oh my God, this it's not Black history. It's our history. It's everyone's history. Why is that? Why didn't I want to know about that? And furthermore, why isn't that just considered a part of our collective history and not an elective? This is something that we all need to be aware of, and not Black history, not Hispanic people's history, not Native American history and white history. It's all of our history. And we cannot address where we are and the circumstance we are in without looking from all those perspectives. Again, like the restorative conversation, you've got all these different people sitting around the table with their unique vision and angle and perspective on the situation. And we've only heard one voice historically. We've only heard one voice.
Yes. Yes, yes. It is so mind-boggling, and there are so many pieces of the puzzle. And for me, what happened at some point along was me saying, of course it's that complex, because truly there are so many pieces of the puzzle. If I believe that diversity in humanity, diversity is an idea that which created us did not make a mistake, then it's easy for me to see that the diversity, biological diversity, and the cultural diversity is really not different than the biological diversity of different species of flowers or different types of trees, or different, like they're all trees, but an oak tree is not like a tree, and a willow tree is not like a bonsai tree, and a bonsai tree is not like, any like an elm tree. And I don't expect them to be alike. And when I go to the Northwest and I want to see the redwoods, I expect something different, and it has its place and it has its needs and it has, its nature. And so why is it that we have so much trouble recognizing that in the species called humanity. There doesn't have to be a rank order or hierarchy of better. It's just different. So I agree with you that it's all of our history. And if we all knew all of our history, we would not keep repeating the things that we do, that then when you see them or when I see them or when someone reads about it, they go, didn't know, I had no idea, that's horrible, why would you treat people that way?
Right.
Because the history has been, everyone has been encouraged to assume what they have been told is the story. The
Right.
story.
Right. And to wade into that ugliness is so painful. Is so painful. From all the different angles. So I understand why the conversations are difficult, but I also understand now that they are necessary because it's we cannot bypass, we can't go around it. The only way to go through this is to go through it. That's how we come out on the other side, is to actually go through it. Exactly. And we know, I believe that it is our work as religious scientists, right, in knowing the truth, knowing that, you know what, it's all okay in the end. It really is. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. And we hold from that faith, hold from that place. And so, when you're going through the fire, you don't pitch a tent, you don't hang out. You just you move on through, but you acknowledge the danger. You see what's there and you suit up with your spiritual practices and your principles, and you go on through like a firefighter going into the fire, suits up and comes out on the other side. They don't go in,
Practical,
what's that?
practical example, another one, the firefighter is a good one too. So in our teaching, we could look at cancer, but let's look at someone who is addicted to drugs or alcohol. And they finally say they can see the damage that has been done in their own life and in the lives of their family members who they have disappointed or who they have stolen from, hurt, and fought with. And they can see the damage they have done because maybe they've had some DUIs or worse and physically harmed or killed someone. So when the veil is lifted, that person says, I am ready to change my life. We do to ignore the fact that they created all of this damage and collateral damage in the past. That's partly what helps keep them on track for moving toward a new life and a new way of being. And every addict that gets to the place where they feel guilty or they feel shame, that's who they used to be. We don't tell them, you're right, you should feel guilty. Well, it's about time you felt ashamed of your behavior. Don't do that if we're working from spiritual foundation or spiritual principle. We say, principle is a precedent. Yes, that's who you used to be, but what are you doing right now? Oh, you're going to that meeting every day. Oh, you're working with a sponsor or a mentor. Oh, you are spiritual practice. And oh, you've been sober now. You've been clean now for 2 years and to sponsor someone else. You are speaking about transformation. So when people hear about our history, And they say, I didn't know that before. And then, especially if they are white, they'll say, oh, I feel so guilty. Oh, I'm so ashamed. Like, okay, great. Now, what are you going to do? What's the equivalent? Learning more, applying spiritual principle, having a mentor, reading to learn more about what you want, and setting a clear vision for everyone and moving toward it every day. What's your daily recovery meeting? What's your daily 12-step meeting? What's the equivalent? Because people get into that, oh, this is so bad and I feel guilty and I feel bad that this is happening to other people. Yeah. And
And
and you wouldn't do that if it was you or your neighbor or your was an addict. You would be with them in the movement toward change and transformation.
yes, yes. So I want to talk about, what's mine to do, what's yours to do, and encouraging others to think about what may be theirs. As I said, educating myself was number one, and I'm continuing. Every day I'm finding a new podcast, some other way to educate myself, and paying it forward. But what's mine to do very specifically is to speak my truth from my particular angle, right? As a person of color, as a person who is from a family of law enforcement officers, as a minister, as a person of faith, from my perspective, to speak my truth, but also then as a facilitator of this work to create the container, to create the space for people to speak their truth and to connect on the heart level and oneness, and to see myself in you and allow you to see yourself in me, right? And connect at that very deep level. And that is what is mine to do.
And I am a big proponent of everyone finding what is theirs to do. And I hope that people understand I'm never saying that you shouldn't practice, because it's my spiritual practice that sustains me and guides me and helps find what is mine to do. But spiritual practice is, what is the word I'm looking for? It's not always silent, right? And so that what is mine to do, I think, is a question that I do hope everybody asks, and that they have a combination of things that are both invisible and visible, mental, spiritual, and secular, because the fact is we are grounded in spirit, but we are living in the physical, and we are not either one or the other, both.
Right.
And so in our lives, we must do both.
Yes, absolutely. It's not an either or, right? It's both and. We do the individual practice. We spend the time in the silence, okay? But then we also, as we say, we treat and we move our feet. Right? Restoration restoration requires accountability. It does, in the human aspect, in the human realm. It requires that we acknowledge what is so and make things right.
About a week or so ago, I gave a Sunday talk, and religious science, we use treat and move your feet often. And it is our reminder to be accountable for the in the world, and really accountability to ourselves, that we are living in alignment with that which into the spiritual, the very fertile spiritual soil. But I was able to go back up to ancient African spirituality, and which I love to do. I'm always looking for, and I am so deeply moved very often when I find that some of the things that we say ancient wisdom, but we don't really go back to the ancient wisdom to find the foundation. And there's an, that is way older than anything that we normally think about. And that Africans, when you pray, move your feet. When you pray, move your when you pray and you set a new course into motion, then you need to be walking the path that really believe that's possible.
Yes.
And so I loved how that for me, ties together ancient with, and you can't get any wisdom that's more ancient than African spirituality. So, but in wisdom too, our phrase today, which means something, and it's nice because it rhymes since we use treatment, but it's all connected. We are not creating anything new. We are having the opportunity into who we say we are and the kind of world we say we believe is heaven on earth.
Yes. Yes. It's ours to do. It is ours to do. Tracy, I want to thank you for being with us today. And I want to encourage people to go to your website. You've got one of them listed there, Stained Glass Spirit. I'm going to pull up another here. It's just Tracy Brown, tracybrown.com. Super simple. I want to encourage people also to go and look at your TED Talk, where they'll find the inspiration for what is mine to do. And again, treat, pray, whatever word you choose, and get into action. Is there anything you want to say in closing? And I'd love for you to pray us out. That would be wonderful.
I can do that. Yeah, in closing, it is my favorite quote. I use it a lot, but it's been very present as we have been talking. And that quote is, every day is a donation to eternity. Even an hour is a contribution to the future. Every day is a donation to eternity. Even it is a contribution to the future. And for me, the what is mine to do boils down to every of my life. The things I do, the things I say, how I treat people, what I allow to be the experience of human life, I am making a donation to the eternal experience of life. And what I do, even in 1 hour, in this time that we've spent together, in the first hour of my day, in any given hour, is a contribution to, is this what I want the world to be? Is this how I want everyone to experience life? And so when we look at it that way, when we look at it, the world that way, it makes it much easier to answer the question, what is mine to do?
Yes. We begin with the end in mind.
Exactly. We credit Stephen Covey, but you know it's not a new idea.
That's right.
Us out now?
Yes, I'm going to take myself out and let you do a little closing prayer. Not a little closing prayer, just a prayer.
And so as I laugh or chuckle, I also breathe. What is true is that there is one infinite intelligence, and it is true. It knows no big, no small. It knows no difference. All it knows is that there is life, and its life is used to be the seed and the nature of all life. Knowing this, I know that my life is a life unfolding, and that what I create from myself, from me, from my words and my actions and my belief is Spirit's highest vision. Spirit's highest vision expressing as me, expressing through me. So I speak this word knowing that there is always something for me to do. And if that is true for me, then it's humanity. And it is true for all of creation. For it is simply Spirit's DNA, the spiritual DNA of expansion, spiritual DNA of reflecting itself into different life. That's all that's happening. And I and everyone within the sound of my voice has the opportunity and the responsibility to choose what it creates. Right now, that it is time to create a world that works for good, that works as an expression of unity, harmony, and wholeness. I speak my word right here and now that now people who are spiritually grounded and understand how the universal spiritual principles work to come forward and to be the leaders, transform the world from hatred, injustice, disparity, poor health, poverty, and move from that into the demonstration of love, wholeness, harmony, joy, peace, prosperity, abundance, beauty. Now is life itself to expand in, as, and through all of humanity. And for that, I am grateful. Now is the time for present to step up and show up and lead. And for that, I am grateful. Time. And we are the people. And for that too, and so I gratefully release myself and all of life into this evolution. That principle is not bound by precedent, and now is the time for love and the law itself through me, through scientists, through all people of faith and commitment. Now is the time. And I release into that now, that ever-present eternal now. I know it is already complete in the mind of God, and I simply invite, and you agree, and you are ready to affirm this as the truth. Simply repeat after me. Amen. Ashe. Shalom. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, beautiful one. I'm so grateful for your presence and for you sharing your time, your talent, your passion, and for the work that you are doing, how you show up in the world. And that beautiful prayer, you are a blessing.
Grateful.
So we're due a little gathering at 4 o'clock. I know you have another engagement. If you can come in for a few minutes, that would be fabulous. And if not, that's okay. But we will be, for those who are viewing, check the wherever it is, the link for Zoom. It's in the chat somewhere, I'm sure. Thanks again, Tracy. I know our
Happy to
paths will.
be here. Love you all.
All righty, take care. And so it is time for us to just give thanks and sharing our gifts and tithes. And that was just a stimulating conversation. I know Tracy and I could have talked probably for several hours more. We didn't mention maybe a collaboration in the future. We'll see what happens. But at any rate, I would like to invite you now, if you are moved by this message, if you are interested in supporting this work, encourage you to share your tithes, your financial gifts. We would greatly appreciate that. I give thanks for everyone that gives, that has been giving to the center, whether they give of their time, their talents, their treasures. And there are many people who do all three. And so we just give thanks for all of them. And I'm going to lead us in an affirmation. You can make it your own, say it after me, or just listen. It is the nature of life to give of itself. As it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom, it is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am grateful. And so as we give, we receive. And we know that if it's money that is what you need, then plant the seed of giving money. If it is love that you are looking for and wanting to receive, then plant the seeds of love and friendship, and you will receive in turn what you give. And so I think that takes us to our closing prayer, which is the prayer for protection. I do invite you to join us on Zoom, and look forward to catching up with you all. So the prayer for protection, this comes from our brothers and sisters in the Unity Movement, specifically James Dillett Freeman. And it is: the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Where you are is holy ground. Wherever you are standing, just remember that it is holy ground. And so I pray and affirm that your week is wonderful, and I look forward to being with you all again next week. Love and blessings.